You're either in Camp Harry and Meghan or you're in Camp Royalty.
Anyone under 30 thought that they were victims, and anyone over 30 thought they were almost traitors.
It seems like Harry and Meghan might have veered from the initial plan. Were Harry and Meghan's lives ever in danger? I do not believe that they were.
He seems to be going down a very self-destructive route here. It's very much a situation with him where he doesn't appear to be responsible for anything.
But the fact that what he's done is he's bleated and complained, said he's doing a life of service when actually he's just selling his soul. He's being a total hypocrite. His willingness to reveal the most private, intimate, personal conversations. When he complains about the media doing that.
Getting two pro-Sussex books, if you like, coming out with different and conflicting stories had the potential to be a very important reflective book. This is the man who criticised the tabloids. It was full of tabloidese type anecdotes.
He demands accountability for the press, but refuses to accept any for himself for smearing the royal family, his own family, as a bunch of callous racists without producing a shred of proof to support those disgraceful claims.
What we have here is a story of Harry and Meghan's truth as opposed to the truth.
It's been over a year since Prince Harry's tell-all memoir Spare was leaked to the public nearly a week before its official release, changing the royal landscape forever. The book was praised by some for its unflinching accounts of life as a young prince, grieving over the loss of his mother and trying to find his way in the world. However, many felt the book was an attempt to rewrite history in his favour, unfairly attacking both the monarchy and the family which they hold dear. Since the publication and fallout of Spare, the Duke of Sussex has seen his popularity dramatically fall both in the UK and in the US, where he lives with his wife Meghan. January Spare Us. Spare exploded onto shelves around the world in January 2023. From tales of brotherly bust-ups, war stories, frostbitten body parts, and recreational drug use, it's easy to see why it became a bestseller. But whilst Harry embarked on a press tour stateside to plug his memoir, giving interviews to Anderson Cooper and Stephen Colbert along the way, the criticisms of the book began to gain traction.
I know he's got his problems. I know he's still traumatised about his mother. He deserves our sympathy for that. Although most adults do get over those kind of events, he just hasn't been able to. So, but that doesn't mean to say we should condemn him. Sympathy for that. But I've got to say, Charlie, at the end of this week of watching hours of him, I don't like him.
Everything he says in the book, and I'm going through the book,
I'm reading it as well. It's an enjoyable read, there's no doubt about that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. I found fascinating, particularly the stuff when he was in Afghanistan, the camaraderie he had with his colleagues and everything else. I found that very, very good. But everything is a fault of the press.
Yeah.
You know, every story he tells, it comes down to, yes, but the press did this, the press did that. And it's just a monophone.
Without wishing to judge him or anything, he seems to be going down a very self-destructive route here. It's very much a situation with him where he doesn't appear to be responsible for anything.
Look, there are a lot of people who've had a lot of sympathy for Harry, and I was certainly someone who, like, you know what, if you want to go off and have a private life, fall in love with the woman you want to love, and you could just go off and not do all this public duty stuff, and you just make your own way and have a private life away from the cameras, I'd have gone, good on you, mate. But the fact that what he's done is he's bleated and complained, said he's doing a life of service when actually he's just selling his soul. He's being a total hypocrite. His willingness to reveal the most private, intimate, personal conversations, when he complains about the media doing that.
I think from the moment that Harry declared he was going to write a memoir, whether it was called Spare, whatever it was going to be called, it was going to be a bestseller. For the first time, you're really getting his point of view from the horse's mouth.
I think that there were multiple factors when it came to the success of Spare. I mean, I was not necessarily surprised by it. First of all, look at the title. The title itself is so aggressive. I was one of the people championing Harry coming out with some sort of life improvement book. Like, look at all of these things that I survived and I'm a better person for it. When I realized that the title was Spare, I understood that he was going down a very different path than I had hoped for.
It was quite clearly written by a ghostwriter. Good book, full of interesting stories and anecdotes. But of course, it caused uproar amongst the royal family. At that time, when Spare came out in the States, remember, it sold very, very well in the States. The popularity of Harry and Meghan was pretty high. It was pretty down over here in the UK because of what he'd been doing. But actually, most people in America, I felt at that time, were fairly sympathetic to Harry.
Reception for the book was 50-50. After the Oprah Winfrey interview, there were really two camps. I mean, the divide was drastic. You're either in Camp Harry and Meghan or you're in Camp Royalty. You are standing behind Prince William, the Princess of Wales. You're standing behind the King and Queen Camilla at the time. However, we still had Queen Elizabeth II. So you found people that either were purchasing the book because they wanted to support Prince Harry. They just ate up everything he wrote about in the book, and there were no questions to its legitimacy. It was just all fact-based in their mind. And then you had the people that have questioned Prince Harry's decisions since Megxit, who kind of, rolled their eyes at the release of the book and didn't want to encourage it.
But then we had some of the detail that came in the book and some of the rather sort of lurid details about frostbitten bits and all sorts of silly stories, which, frankly, and the story also about him losing his virginity in a field and all of these things, I think a lot of people thought he'd gone too far. And actually, if it had a good editor on the book, I think a lot of this stuff might have been edited out, because it had the potential to be a very important reflective book, rather like the Edward VIII wrote when he wrote A King's Story. I mean, it had that potential. Yet it's this is the man who criticised the tabloids. It was full of tabloidese type anecdotes.
I do think it kind of, if I'm being honest, opened up the floodgates for criticism of Prince Harry, because there was a lot of Todger talk. And I don't think anybody anticipated so much Todger talk. There was some content in there that did not reflect positively on Harry and almost gave certain people permission to start criticizing him, which you didn't have prior to that, because they had this real victim cloud that was over them. So you didn't want to criticize them because you didn't want to be attacked for criticizing them, because they've been through so much. But Harry kind of going into some of those silly conversations with the Elizabeth Arden and, going into some of those bizarre topics, it opened him up to a lot of criticism. Yeah. I
bought a copy of it, which I regret. And I read 3 chapters and I just didn't want to read anymore. It was just awful. And thinking about, hey, can you say things like that about your brother? I thought it was a mistake, Harry. I really did. You should have thought about it. You don't need the money, or you didn't need the money. Maybe you do now, but he owns everything to the royal family.
February, the worldwide privacy tour. After the media storm that followed the release of Spare, Harry and Meghan found themselves in unfamiliar territory as they became the butt of a joke on the long-standing American comedy South Park. For many, appearing as the focus of Matt Stone and Trey Parker's acerbic wit is an honour. South Park is, after all, considered one of the greatest animated comedies of all time. But for Brand Sussex, it really felt like the public perception of the couple was beginning to change.
Toronto, it's good morning, Canada. It has been several months now since our beloved Queen has died. All Canadians are finding it hard to go on. All Canadians, that is, except for our first guest, the Prince and his wife. We want privacy! We want privacy! Thanks for having us on the show. It's so awesome to be here. It's great. So let me start with you, Sam. You've lived a life with the royal family. You've had everything handed to you, but you say your life has been hard, and now you've written all about it in your new book, When.
Well, you can't argue with that, can you? That's South Park. Well done, guys. And I would say the gloss may be coming off the Sussexes.
They don't hold back, do they? They've gone for the jugular. And that's the point. And they have now backed themselves into a corner. They wanted sympathy. And if a program like South Park has deemed them, look, they lampoon a lot of things. And that's one of the points of the program. They like to prick bubbles in people's ego. Well, they've done it. And in that case, hugely.
I think the South Park sketch was quite fun because it was actually dealing with a much younger audience. That was the first time, I think, people had actually openly mocked Meghan and Harry, particularly in America. So it was around about the South Park episode, which I found particularly funny, that there was a sea change from them being the sort of poor put-upon royals, the ones that had suffered racist attacks, the ones that had suffered mental abuse, to, you know, people stepping back and realising actually some of the claims that were being made by the couple were not only odd, they were completely wrong. And I think actually they began to sort of realise that they weren't as popular as they thought they were.
The South Park episode was like a breath of fresh air to a lot of people who were fearful of saying anything about it, because Harry and Meghan were known as these innocent victims of the mean British royal family. And it was kind of like, finally, somebody has the guts to say what's on everybody's mind. It really gave everybody permission to kind of go in. And I imagine that Harry and Meghan absolutely loathe that episode.
March frogs it. With the King's coronation drawing nearer, the conversation if Harry and Meghan would attend began dominating the news agenda. Will they or won't they was the prevailing narrative. However, even before an RSVP from Montecito, King Charles did a spot of spring cleaning and asked the Sussexes to vacate Frogmore Cottage. Talk about rolling out the red carpet.
Couldn't happen to a nicer couple. Harry and Meghan have been kicked out of their Frogmore cottage in Windsor after the publication of Spare, or as South Park would have it, wah!
And now there's negotiation about whether they come or whether they don't come. Surely they have to come, because they are nothing without the royal link.
They have to come because they've got to restore their brand. If you're seeing people like Chris Rock lampooning them, which is a further sort of indication that in America all is not well in the Meghan Harry camp. They have to come to the coronation, they would seem, for their credibility, to prove that they still are relevant within that organization. At the moment, they are floundering. This victimhood is now playing against them, and they've got to reboot themselves. And coming to the coronation might be a quiet way of doing, well, not a quiet way, an obvious way of doing it.
I personally don't think the King is a vindictive man, so I don't think it was linked necessarily to a reaction to Spare, but there'd been an awful lot of criticism of the British royal family up until that point, and Spare was the pinnacle of that, really. And to have this property that is a handsome property in Windsor, Great Park, actually lay empty whilst for them to come over when they feel like it, just had a wrong feel about it. And I think a lot of people around the monarch probably thought that it was a bad look to have that. The fact is that the property was there for them because when they were working for the family. If they're not working for the family, really it has to come back into the Crown Estate. I didn't expect either Harry or Meghan to attend the coronation because I think some of the claims that had been made would have made the whole thing to be very embarrassing.
There was a real debate as to whether Prince Harry and Meghan Markle would go to the coronation, because we heard at the time of the Queen's death that things were very icy. And since the Queen's death, we had the release of the Netflix docuseries. We had Prince Harry's book Spare. Neither one of these projects were flattering towards the British royal family or Harry's relationship with his sibling or even the Princess of Wales, Catherine. So, you know, when it came to the coronation, there were two different scenarios that we kind of fixated on. Harry coming by himself, or the idea that Harry and Meghan had to come because the royal family are the only thing that keeps them relevant.
April, a coronation fit for a prince. At the beginning of April, it was clear Harry and Meghan were welcome to attend the coronation. However, there was still silence from Camp Sussex on whether they could be making the trip back to the UK. On the 12th of April, Buckingham Palace announced Harry would be attending, but his wife Meghan would stay at home, leading to speculation on what role Harry might play in his father's coronation.
We've heard lots at the weekend about, why, he's coming and Meghan's not coming, and battles over where they were going to sit in the ceremony, as a non-working royal now, but being very senior royal nevertheless, balcony place, whether attending all these different events. Do you think that is what it's been all about rather than anything else?
I hope it isn't. I have to admit the Harry saga is not one that has completely gripped me over the last couple of years. But all I can say is, well, say the words of Sir Winston Churchill, jaw is better than war. Speaking to each other is a lot better than in print against each other, and I can only hope that starts to resolve the situation.
It's probably a good compromise for all and sundry, and it means that whatever the backstory was about whether it was she didn't come because there was no seating, it wasn't going to be the right seating, or whatever was the discussions behind the scenes, the fact that Harry's coming and has told us within 3.5 weeks of the coronation, at least we now know. And she can stay at home and look after and celebrate Archie's 4th birthday. So it is, I suppose, from a family point of view, it just takes some of the heat out of the situation.
May, coronation and car chases. It was the moment Charles had waited nearly his whole life. The King's coronation took place on Saturday, the 6th of May. Against all odds, his second son, Harry, was in attendance, but not welcome on the balcony, and made a swift exit to return to LA. Something he would come to perfect later in our timeline.
We can see Peter Phillips at the very front, Princess Eugenie on the right.
Oh my, Prince Harry
and
at the
Princess
back.
Beatrice,
Peter
and there's
Phillips.
Prince Harry.
I knew he would
Prince
come
Harry
with the
arriving,
princesses.
accompanied by his cousins there. That's Jack Brooks back there, and that's Edo. That's Princess Beatrice's husband with Prince Harry. I thought he'd arrive with his cousins.
Yes.
Definitely.
But I have to say that's a huge statement.
I think if Harry hadn't come to the coronation, he'd have regretted it. I think if he'd brought Meghan with him, it would have been more difficult for the family, given what had been said and done. He looked a little awkward, but I think he put on a pretty good show, actually. And if he was feeling aggrieved, he certainly didn't let on.
When the family came on the balcony, Harry wasn't there. And, I felt very sad about that because he's only got 2 sons and he loves these sons dearly. And one decided not to be there. And I think it's very sad.
Just a few weeks after the King's crowning moment, Harry and his wife Meghan were back in the headlines as a spokesperson for the couple reported they'd been involved in a high-speed car chase with paparazzi in New York City.
I thought I was going to have a quiet time after the coronation, but it's been a bit of a strange week. Suddenly 3 o'clock a couple of days ago, you get to see that press release and you think, wow, what's going on here? The last 48 hours, the story's not probably gone the way the Sussexes wanted.
It's all a bit, it's in some ways a classic Sussex story in that it seems to have been quite emotionally led, and now the facts, it doesn't entirely add up, and that perhaps they were responding very emotionally to what is obviously a very emotive subject for Harry.
Harry and Meghan say they experienced a terrifying more than 2-hour car chase through the streets of Manhattan that was, according to them, and I quote, near catastrophic. Now, ever since then, everyone else involved in this, the police, a taxi driver who picked them up for a while, the mayor of New York, has challenged this. So, once again, it seems to me that what we have here is a story of Harry and Meghan's truth, as opposed to the truth.
Well, when I first heard that there'd been some high-speed car chase involving paparazzi in New York, Meghan and Harry, I was quite concerned because obviously I remember the tragedy that unfolded with Diana, Princess of Wales, his mother, and I thought, oh, no, not again. But when you started to dig deeper into this, given where they were, high-speed chases through New York City are pretty difficult. Whoever put that story out that there was this high-speed chase, got it completely wrong.
This was highly exaggerated. It was a highly exaggerated incident that happened because Harry and Meghan insisted on going up a public entrance so they could have their pictures taken. The person in charge of their security, they call him like the Houdini of security because him and his clients just disappear at the end of the night. Yet they went out this very public entrance and had their photo taken. So it seems like a lot of mistakes were made security-wise. It seems like Harry and Meghan might have veered from the initial plan, and veering from the initial plan led to some discomfort. But were Harry and Meghan's lives ever in danger? I do not believe that they were.
I went over to America shortly after that. They were very much widely being mocked. A lot of New Yorkers, which is a completely different type of person to everybody else. They just found the whole thing absurd, that the idea of there being a high-speed chase. And when I think American television then interviewed the taxi driver who said it just didn't happen, there was a little bit of distaste about how the story had been spun.
June, effing grifters. In June, Spotify announced they were ditching their deal with the Duke and Duchess of Sussex after just one series of Meghan's podcast Archetypes. Equally damaging to their brand as well as their ego was a damning quote from Spotify's head of podcast innovation and monetization, Bill Simmons, who labelled the couple effing grifters. Ouch.
Bill Simmons, the senior podcasting executive at Spotify, he has launched in his own podcast on Friday a rant about the couple and saying the effing grifters, that's the podcast, we should have launched them. He said, I've got to get drunk one night and tell the story of the Zoom I had with Harry to try and help him with a podcast idea. One of my best stories, the grifters. He also talked about them being lazy as well. They were paid a fortune by Spotify and really didn't turn out many podcasts at all.
Last week, Spotify and Archwell Audio released a joint statement saying they had mutually agreed to part ways and are proud of the series we made together. However, sources close to Spotify have said the royal couple did not meet the productivity benchmark required to receive the full headline payout.
I don't know that it was entirely mutual, because I think this was such a huge platform for Meghan and Harry's brand, but Spotify wasn't getting out of it what they had wanted. We only saw these 12 episodes. One of them was sort of a Christmas special, and so it really wasn't the sort of churn out that I think Spotify was used to in terms of their biggest, highest paid podcast. So I don't imagine that this was really as mutual as they would like us to believe.
It could have been good. There's no two ways about it if she'd concentrated on her guests. I feel that they missed a trick, and that really is my point about it, because they had the chance. But when you're trying at the same time to assert your sort of voice, as it were, and she's very keen to put her voice out there, and no one's saying that that's a bad thing. But ultimately, if the people who run it think, well, this has actually ended up being a bit bland.
Look, the sums of money involved in Meghan and Harry's media deals were huge, and to sustain those sort of huge media deals in America, it doesn't matter who you are, you have to deliver. And in all honesty, apart from the Netflix series and the podcast that Meghan did, they really didn't deliver an awful lot. And I think that ultimately the big shots who were looking at the numbers saying they didn't add up. And it was inevitable that a lot of these deals would fall apart. A lot of people had seen Meghan and Harry as chances, particularly in this country, for quite some time, especially when they're signing some of these megabuck deals basically on the back of cashing in on the royal family. But when an American high-powered executive came out with that expression, effing grifters, I think it was quite clear then that America had cottoned on to the fact that actually they were not getting bang for their buck. And I think that ultimately America is not going to put up with that. It's a commercial world that they'd entered, and they were finding actually that it's pretty tough.
When they announced that there was a separation, to me it was very clear that they had a difficulty working with one another, that it wasn't a comfortable working situation, that somebody didn't like somebody else. I do think ultimately that Spotify wanted Harry, and they got little to nothing from him. Harry appears on a Christmas special, pops into a couple of Meghan's episodes briefly, but he appears on one bizarre Christmas special that they produced at the beginning of their relationship, and that's it. And I think ultimately Spotify wanted Harry. Harry had very bizarre ideas. He wanted to talk to Putin. He wanted to talk to Trump. He wanted to talk to the Pope. Very unrealistic, Delulu, if you will. And they realized they were not going to get from him what they wanted or need. Why did he not do an entire podcast just promoting Spare chapter by chapter? There were so many options, and he failed to deliver. And so Spotify said, you know what? The return on investment is just not here. We're going to sever ties. We're going to sever those ties now. I think it confirmed some things for people that had questions about the Sussexes. Look, if you look at their relationship with Netflix, it took Harry and Meghan 2 years and multiple production teams to produce Harry and Meghan, their really only commercial success for Netflix. They have a reputation for being difficult. If you look at the history of Meghan's relationship at Kensington Palace, read books by Valentine Lowe, Tom Quinn, Tom Bower, they all document Meghan communicating with staff in a really unfriendly, sometimes unprofessional way. So they had developed a reputation for being difficult, unkind, and lazy seems like a lazy word to use, but I'm going to go ahead and use it because it's right there. And honestly, here comes Bill Simmons, a voice out of nowhere with a lot of credibility that confirms it.
July, flop era. After the Spotify news in July, Rolling Stone magazine published an article claiming Harry and Meghan were in their flop era. It was also reported that the couple felt they were the victims of bad luck, alluding to the Queen's death as one of the reasons for their faltering post-royal careers, which, as you can imagine, was as well received as Sussex Christmas card at Kensington Palace.
Rolling Stone magazine are the latest publication to have their say on the Sussexes. They are reportedly, according to the magazine, in their flop era. It claimed part of the issue the Sussexes are currently facing is that they have made their brand about their beef with the royal family. Now their feud has reached a stalemate, and it feels like there isn't much more to say. This follows on from Bloomberg, from the Wall Street Journal. I'm kind of losing count on these kind of big publications.
Yeah.
Going for Harry and Meghan.
Well, I'm a great believer in you make your own luck. The reality is they decided to go down a strategy which was to trash Harry's family. We shouldn't have been surprised because Meghan, when she married into the royal family, had spent some time trashing her own family. If you're going to go down that line and that's your strategy, you have to then accept what comes next. And what comes next is that you're seen as a couple that really, have nothing really much more to say than being critical. Were they unlucky? I don't think they were unlucky. I think they were very lucky to get the deals that they did at the amounts of money that they secured. If they were talented as they thought they were, they would have made sure that they got deals that extended on and they'd actually produced the actual material and the product that people wanted to see and buy. But clearly they didn't. So it's nothing to do with luck, it's to do with talent, and it's to do with engaging with the audience in the way that they said they were going to do. They just didn't deliver. That's not to do with luck.
I think that they could still be in their flop era. What have they accomplished lately? They just did the Whistler Canada preview to Invictus 2025. It was okay. It was all right. Whatever. But I don't think that they have accomplished anything significant recently. Even Harry's book was released in the same year that they were considered in their flop era. So I think that they have a long way to go before people will see them differently. When it comes to Harry and Meghan blaming things on bad luck, I think it's just a reflection of who they are. It's never their fault. They never take responsibility for anything, and they never think about the consequences of their actions. So when I hear them say, or hear that they said it was just all bad luck, I'm not surprised at all. That's just who these two are.
August, hairs and the spare. After playing polo in Singapore in August, some sections of the press began commenting on Harry's hair, claiming that it looked thinner than usual. However mean as that may seem, cast your minds back to how Harry spoke about his brother's hair loss. I looked at Willie, really looked at him, perhaps for the first time since we were little, taking in every detail. His familiar scowl, which had always been the norm in his dealings with me. Harry wrote, adding that William's baldness was alarming and more advanced than mine. He also thought that William's resemblance to their mother, Princess Diana, had faded.
I beg of you, Harry, we can't as a nation look at any more pictures of you looking like Friar Tuck. It is time you either cut the hair as you cut the cord with your family, or go to Turkey, go to Greece and get that transplant. I did. It was a tough decision. Now, he may be very happy looking like he is, but at the moment, he seems to be trying to hide it by having that big amount of hair on the front and nothing on the back. And of course, is anyone telling him what he looks like from behind? Is anyone telling him that there is this big gap. We saw the photo of him leaving London, and there is a big patch on the back of his head. Come on, Harry. You clearly can make difficult decisions because, you know, it must have been quite a tough decision to completely shaft your family on a regular basis in order to take money. So this decision, in comparison to that, would be a breeze.
September. Invictus is where the heart is. Let it be said that one of Harry's biggest strengths lies in his enthusiasm and support of current and former military personnel. As patron and founder of the Invictus Games, Harry has provided a platform for injured and wounded servicemen and women to come together and compete in front of a worldwide audience. In September, the Prince showed himself in his element at the Invictus Games in Dusseldorf. He was also seen together with Meghan for the first time since their car chase in New York.
Forget Netflix and Spotify. Is this the moment the Sussexes launched their fight back?
Does it feel to you like we're seeing the old Harry back?
Definitely. It's hard to describe, but it's not just the old Harry, it's a more relaxed and comfortable Harry. And also he's kind of more relaxed and comfortable with the media being around him. Before we would see him grumpy, not wanting to engage with anyone when photographers are around. But he sees us here. If you see him with the young people, with the children, that's what he used to do when he was a working prince. That's why we all loved him.
Harry deserves great respect and admiration for everything he's done for the Invictus Games, and I'm really glad that Meghan gets behind him. Now she's really getting into the spirit of it, and even I cannot pour scorn on this. You know, I mean, what is to say about this except good for them, great event, and it's great that everyone's enjoying their company.
It's an event that has done a great deal for ex-service personnel that are both injured or having mental issues or really just needing to be find a goal in their lives. And I think he deserves great credit for it. He was certainly back in his element because amongst that group he's very, very popular. And what is amazing is he's been able to maintain it and carry it on. You know, this costs a fortune to put on, an absolute fortune. And he still manages to do it, and I think he deserves great credit for that.
I remember the first one in California Springs. I think it was called the Warrior Games then, and he got so involved with it. You know, I mean, he was playing basketball with them, and he was just so involved, and it was absolutely brilliant. And I remember at the end of it, we all went to the pub, and Harry, you know, got the bar just for us, and we had an hour and a half with him, and it was fun. It was fun. Jokes were being cracked. He was criticising what he didn't like, what he did like, and it was just brilliant. And so it's gone on to even more, much bigger now, and different parts of the world it's hosted, and it gives these wounded men such an incentive to get up and stop feeling sorry for themselves and start to train and to achieve these amazing things. And so, you know, he's put a lot back into it, and for that, you know, he is a hero.
October, Family Guy. It's ironic that someone who stepped away from the royal family and has embraced being a family man would be lampooned back by a show called Family Guy. But in October, that's exactly what happened when Seth MacFarlane's long-running comedy series made Harry and his wife Meghan the butt of the joke once again.
I mean, this is sort of mocking the Netflix deal and, you know, the fact they didn't do an awful lot for it. For example, it kind of follows on from South Park, which was the worldwide privacy tour.
Which was hugely damaging, by the way, like worldwide. That South Park episode is, they are now celebrities. So they're now able to be mocked on these kind of TV shows.
But they want to be taken seriously, don't they?
Yeah, so I don't think they'll be particularly happy that they are now being mocked freely. I mean, it's such a shame, the journey that they've gone to, that they've been on. They're now the butt of the jokes on American. I don't think they wanted to be the butt of the jokes on Family Guy and places like that. They are now celebrities that are, you know, like Britney Spears or something like that pop culture can mock them and laugh at them.
But they made the decision to be public figures. And if you are a public figure and you do some things that are seen to be unfair, overly critical, untrue in some cases, then people are going to hit back, and that's exactly what they faced.
On visits to North America, after Harry moved there, I found that most young people thought they were great. They thought they were really great, and I think anyone under 30 thought that they were victims, and anyone over 30 thought they were almost traitors, you know, what they did. But and slowly that's changing now, because these shows are suddenly seeing through Meghan and Harry, and they're seeing them as they are, and they are now starting to be less popular.
Prince Harry's the type that watches South Park. Prince Harry is the type that watches Family Guy. So to be the butt of jokes on shows that he would watch for entertainment has got to be a really uncomfortable scenario, especially for two people that take themselves so incredibly seriously that it just is so frustrating. But no, I don't think that they ever anticipated to be the butt of jokes. Not on Saturday Night Live, not on South Park, not on Family Guy. And even, you know, you're seeing little mentions of them in movies here and there. So I don't think that they like it. No, I think that this is something that when they talked about wanting privacy, they probably just meant from that sector of the world.
November. Endgame for Scobie. In November, Harry and Meghan were branded as eco-hypocrites after reportedly flying to Katy Perry's Las Vegas concert in a private jet. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex have both been ardent supporters of action on climate change, so to many, this flight demonstrated rank hypocrisy. Worse than this, however, was the publication of Omid Scobie's Endgame. Scobie was responsible for Finding Freedom, which documented the couple's relationship and exit from the royal family. Endgame, the book which Harry and Meghan denied any involvement with, promised to offer an explosive tell-all account of the royal family, but even before it hit the shelves, it was mired in controversy.
I think it's safe to say that we can take Endgame with a very large pinch of salt. It reads like a threatening letter from an ex-girlfriend determined to ruin life for everyone else.
Frankly, it should be his own Endgame. You're not a journalist. You don't do your research. You haven't even got any sources.
The royal family isn't fighting for survival. Harry and Meghan are.
Harry, Meghan, and now Omid Scobie weaponize race relations.
I don't believe any racist comments were ever made by any of the royal family. I'm going to cut through all this crap. I'm going to tell you the names of the two senior royals who are named in that Dutch version of the book. The royals who are named are King Charles and Catherine, Princess of Wales.
I think the royal racist story and the naming of the royal racist story was more damaging for Omid Scobie, the author of Endgame, and for Harry himself, because really I don't think many people believe that the king, who spent his entire life working for communities and promoting diversity in this country and around the Commonwealth, could possibly be accused of being a racist, and nor could Catherine. So I think there was a reality check hit then, when people said, really? Is this what people were saying? I think that actually Endgame was fairly, in this country anyway, was trashed quite a lot, and it also conflicted a little bit with Harry's version of events. So we were getting two pro-Sussex books, if you like, coming out with different and conflicting stories. All the racist accusations that are always hung over the royal family for some time since the Oprah interview, I think most people thought afterwards that they just didn't add up and were simply wrong.
In the book, in the Dutch version that was released, Omid accuses the King and the Princess of Wales of being two of the individuals that made comments about Prince Archie's skin tone that negatively affected Harry and Meghan. These are the two people allegedly that Harry and Meghan are referencing in the Oprah Winfrey interview, where they actually only accuse one person. You know, with Harry and Meghan, it always changes, it always evolves, it's always exaggerated. So who knows what the truth is? But it was a pretty upsetting time when that happened. It just felt so chaotic. And there is not one person that's come out to say that they believe this or they've seen some sort of example of it, of the King or the Princess of Wales being this type of person or communicating in this way. So I think based on the fact that it was Omid, based on the way it all came out, I don't think it was considered a very credible piece of information.
December, A Californian Christmas. As the year bookended by bombshell biographies drew to a close, Harry and Meghan released a Christmas card a few hours after a judge found Harry had been the victim of phone hacking by Mirror Group newspapers. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex sent out an email with their virtual Christmas cards on behalf of their Archwell organisation. We wish you a very happy holiday season. Thanks for all the support in 2023.
Prince Harry's outrage at media intrusion into the private lives of the royal family is only matched by his own ruthless, greedy and hypocritical enthusiasm for doing it himself. He talked today about the appalling behaviour of the press, but this is a guy who's repeatedly trashed his family in public for hundreds of millions of dollars, even as two of its most senior and respected members were dying, his grandparents. It's hard to imagine, frankly, more appalling behaviour than that. As for him saying this is a good day for truth, the Duke has been repeatedly exposed in recent years as someone who wouldn't know the truth if it slapped him around his California tanned face. He demands accountability for the press, but refuses to accept any for himself for smearing the royal family, his own family, as a bunch of callous racists without producing a shred of proof to support those disgraceful claims. He also says he's on a mission to reform the media when it's become clear his real mission, along with his wife, is to destroy the British monarchy, and I will continue to do whatever I can to stop them.
If somebody has faced phone hacking, illegal activity, then of course it's their right to take it through the courts and be recompensed in the way that they should be. But my feeling is to try and make out he's championing in this for the ordinary person would be wrong, because the media landscape where all these sort of activities took place has long gone. Newsrooms across the UK look nothing like this. There's no activity going on like this at all in any newsroom around up and down the country. I think if you're just saying that I want to be recompensed for phone hacking, fair enough, but don't try and make out you're trying to be a hero to reform a media that's already reformed itself.
It does come off a little hypocritical for Harry to criticize the media for telling his secrets when he is out there telling the secrets of his sister-in-law, posting text messages between his wife and his sister-in-law and Spare. That's pretty unethical too. Like, it should, at one point, hopefully he acknowledges that. I think Harry and Meghan's 2023 Christmas card is just kind of an example of what their ultimate goal is. They want to be seen as this very glossy, sharp, put together brand that has gone off the rails lately. So I don't think that that's actually how they're seen, beautifully poised, shiny, just smiling so bright. It's not a real reflection of who they are, but I believe it's a reflection of who they want to be seen as, or what they want to be seen as. They want you to think, wow, they're so glamorous and in love and put together and glossy. But the reality is, it's like, we're making this one decision which wreaks havoc over here, and then we're going to make this other decision which ruins our relationship with this person. And you just kind of see that they don't consider consequences as much as they should.
January 24, a month to forget. A year on from Spare, the Prince found himself in hot water with regard to his involvement in a charity facing allegations of rape and abuse. Harry's recent decision to join the board of directors sparked outrage and prompted calls for him to quit in support of the alleged victims. Meanwhile, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex were also being criticised for their decision to attend the Bob Marley film One Love premiere, where they were pictured alongside Jamaican Prime Minister Andrew Holness, who wants to make Jamaica a republic. Back in Blighty, Harry's sister-in-law, the Princess of Wales, and his father, King Charles, were both admitted to hospital.
Prince Harry has been urged to step down from the board of a conservation charity linked to allegations of human rights abuses. African Parks is investigating claims that its rangers raped and tortured indigenous people in the Republic of the Congo. These are very serious allegations, rape and torture. This is not sort of money laundering or embezzling. This is really quite serious stuff. And I think it's surprising that he's known about this for nearly a year and hasn't. Yes, he's having it investigated, but he hasn't sort of severed links while it's proven or disproven.
I don't think he should be stepping down at all. As you say, there are allegations, and they're serious. Harry, in his position, he's so influential, he should stay in that role and use his power and influence to find out exactly what is going on and then try and effect change.
There are people that have stated recently that they warned Prince Harry about abuse, sexual abuse, bullying, physical violence going on within an African parks charity that Prince Harry is involved with. Now, he was allegedly warned about these accusations in May. It was early 2024 where those accusations were made public in the Mail on Sunday. And Prince Harry, through a spokesperson, said that he elevated the situation. He made the right people aware of the accusations. However, we've not heard from him since. My point is, how do you go and make a documentary on Africa, glossy, beautiful, we're here in Africa and everything's fine, when we know that a charity that you are highly involved with is accused of attacking, raping, and just general violence and abuse towards the locals? It just makes absolutely no sense. And it's hard to take you as a credible expert when you did not rush, allegedly, to stop this.
There's been much speculation as to whether or not there'd been any contact from Montecito after the news that the King and Kate were both having to have hospital treatment. There was no mention of it in Prince Harry's speech on Friday night when he accepted his Living Legends of Aviation award, but it was made clear by spokespeople for the Sussexes that they had reached out in different ways privately to both the King and the Princess of Wales to express their concerns and their get well wishes for them.
So that's good to know.
Yeah, and I think privately is the way that this needs to be done.
Well, actually, what happened was that the spokespeople said they did reach out to both the King and Catherine at the time they went into hospital initially. They may well have reached out, but my understanding is that there was no contact. So they may have reached out, but there was no response. I think that the first time we had any real response is when the King contacted Harry to inform him of his diagnosis for cancer.
February 24, a flying visit. After the shocking news that the King has cancer, Harry rushed back for the briefest of meetings with his father at Clarence House. When the news dropped, the overwhelming majority were in support of Harry's decision to be at his father's side in what must be a torrid time for the royals, regardless of any rifts. However, the briefest of meetings soon came to light, which didn't sit well with royal fans. The pair allegedly spoke for just half an hour before Harry turned back around for the return journey to the States, where he was due to present an award at an NFL event. And as you can imagine, the whole country must have sighed and rolled their eyes.
King Charles III has been diagnosed with cancer. The King told close family members, including his sons, Prince William and Prince Harry. The announcement was made to the British public at 6 p.m. this evening and shocked the world. Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, has told friends he's flying into the UK over the next few days to see his father, who he's already spoken to over the phone.
Credit to Harry for dropping everything and flying to see his stricken father. But the reception, to say it's been lukewarm is the exaggeration of the century. The guy comes here, he goes to see his dad 30 minutes later, and we understand that Harry may well be flying back later today. I think this is the royal family saying the way you've been behaving for the last 3 years, you are not forgiven. Thank you for coming. Now go home. It turns out that the person who probably kept the meeting short was Harry, because he had to fly back to go to this rather vulgar ceremony in Las Vegas. What is he playing at? I mean, the vulgarity of this.
I would like to be able to say the boy done well, but he missed 2, possibly 3 own goals there, because had he, in front of that crowd in Las Vegas, having just come from seeing his father, have said something about his condition and wished him well, that would have gone down hugely well.
My understanding is once the King had informed Harry by telephone that he had cancer, Harry took it upon himself to fly over. I don't think the King particularly wanted him to come over, not because he didn't want to see his son. That would be wrong to say that. I think it was because he didn't want to make a big fuss. He didn't want people in the media reading more into that visit. He just wanted some rest and recuperation. But Harry, I think, who hasn't really been getting an awful lot of contact with his father, thought the only way he could do that was to fly over, I believe. He did want to spend some time at Sandringham with him, maybe a couple of nights. But when he landed, was told to go straight to Clarence House and then had to book one hotel for an overnight stay and then fly straight back. So he got only perhaps half an hour with his dad, which Doesn't suggest it was necessarily the warmest of visits, but at least he did it, and I think he showed willing, and he deserves credit for that. But I think the King really just wanted to rest on his own or with the Queen at Sandringham.
Maybe that was the case, that Prince Harry did expect to spend a few days with his father, but was turned away. But are you still showing up to the NFL Honors Show? It just feels very tacky and beneath him. And it's okay to say, I'm going to sit this one out because my dad's sick. I hope you understand.
The key thing here is, can they re-establish trust? At the moment, I don't think that's necessarily possible. Where there was sympathy, there is no more. There will be a hard core of people that continue to believe in the Harry and Meghan roadshow, but increasingly, and even commercially, fewer people are believing in that. They know that their core money or their core celebrity comes from Harry's association with the royal family. As it seems to me, the royal family are not really engaging with him, so it's going to be more difficult for him to continue to capitalise on that relationship.
The problem is they're so nervous about talking in front of Harry because all that could appear in the next podcast or the next book or the next TV show. Just when that chap said to him, well, what cancer is it? He said, that's for me. I'm not saying anything about it. You know, that to me is the way it should be. And maybe that's Harry changing. Maybe that's, for me, probably the first sign that he's no longer going to trash his family and no longer going to reveal the things that they wish to keep private.
I'm not really in the camp of there is a reunion on the horizon due to a cancer diagnosis. I don't think that that's necessarily going to happen here. I think that Prince William is pretty much done. I think what he's doing now is protecting his family going forward, focusing on the future and not the past. And I think that that's probably best for his mental health as well.
Recently, he's given an interview to a television station in Canada, and he said he's even considering becoming an American citizen. Well, don't do that, Harry, because quite honestly, it's, you know, you're leaving one of the greatest families in the world, probably the most senior royal family in the whole world, and you're going to settle for being just another celebrity in a town full of celebrities.
Objectively, it's not been a great exit from the royal fold for Prince Harry. From failed media projects, claims of hypocrisy and double standards, it's been a year to forget. And with the Sussex popularity on the wane on both sides of the pond, it's anyone's guess how Harry's fortunes might fare in 2024. For all the latest royal content, be sure to like, share and subscribe to talkTV.